have some tea with me this recording, because last time, my voice left the building halfway through my recording. Let's hope that doesn't happen this time. I've come prepared. I'm very rusty. Let's go. And I have an intro now. Pretty rad. Hi, I'm Cryptid, your humble internet drawer, and today I'm back with another speed draw after my brief involuntary hiatus, which, believe me, I'm going to be complaining about in this video. Well, not complaining. Call it a story time. I've had a bunch of content lined up, ready for me to turn into videos, and I was so pumped for it too, until my computer was like, no. Don't worry, I'll get into it. But before I do, if you're new to my channel, hi. I make stuff. And if you want to see me make stuff, hit subscribe and ring like and smash the bell, I don't know, let's draw. So, the plot that my OCs are a part of centers heavily around war, and sort of just individuals during wartime. And anybody who knows me knows I tend to make them suffer. Much to the chagrin of a couple of my friends who seem more attached to my character's mortal status than I am. A lot of them die, some of them twice, and one of them 3 times. He's a very special lad. But this isn't him. This is 7, and he dies once. And if you couldn't tell already, that's what I'm drawing. I'm going to issue some trigger warnings right off the bat for a cartoon/stylized blood and gore. It's pretty mild, but I do discuss it as well. So if you're not up for that, then no worries, I'll see you around. Now, if you're just here to hear me talk about the art and not my laptop, skip ahead to this timestamp. If not, dudes, folks, my guys, I've been having an unfortunate time. My laptop had what I originally thought was a small software issue, and it turned out to be kind of a big hardware issue. It started sometime back in April. I've had this computer since March, mind you, when I had to finally retire the one that I've had since 2014. What was happening was it started pink screening and rebooting at random. Yes, not blue screening, pink screening, like CMYK magenta to be exact. But it happened pretty infrequently, so like maybe once a month, and I never really lost any work because of it, though it did kick me into the habit of saving super often. But anyway, I didn't think anything of it. Then one day, about a month ago, it crashed, rebooted itself, and then just would not stop. I'm serious, it would start audio glitching, then freeze up, then the screen would flash pink, and it would reboot. I would log in, though sometimes I didn't even get that far, and it would do it again. On average, I had about 2 minutes screen time before it restarted again, so I couldn't do much. This is apparently called a kernel panic loop, and on some level, I can relate. I called tech support and they told me to try freeing up space on the hard drive and reinstalling my OS. So I did that from recovery mode, because at this point, I could still access recovery mode. The lady said something along the lines of, since the crashes aren't happening in recovery mode, that means it's a software issue, not a hardware issue. Yeah, hold on to that thought. After that, I did what she told me, I restarted my laptop, and it worked fine. And this was about the time when I edited my last video. So a week or so goes by, and I'm, minding my own business, drawing, then it crashes, and I'm like, shit, here we go again. But it reboots, and it's fine. So my dumbass doesn't call tech support right away. Another day goes by, then it does it again. So I start it back up, and it's crashing again, in a loop. So I'm like, clearly whatever I did didn't fix the problem. I've stuck a band-aid where there should have been stitches, and now it's just fallen off, and it's bleeding all over the place. But it's rebooting super fast this time. Like, at the loading screen, a teeny tiny bit of the loading bar would fill up, and my laptop would be like, oh hell, no, that's too much, and then die. Like, it could handle nothing. By this point, it's about 11 something at night, so I'm not getting help that day. I close the lid of my laptop and I go to bed. Wake up the next day and I go to check on it, see if it's magically fixed itself overnight. To my absolute surprise, it hasn't, and now it just won't turn on. So I'm like, great. I keep pushing the power button and it tells me that it's out of battery. Now, when I put it to sleep, quote unquote sleep, it was on 100% battery. Come to find out, it won't sleep, it won't turn off or shut down. All it wants to do is reboot over and over. So now I'm stuck with Schrodinger's laptop going between one of 2 states, a frozen loading bar with about 2 pixels of load on it, or pink. So a little later that morning, I call tech support again and I reopen my case. I tell the dude it's messed up. After about half an hour, we managed to get it to run diagnostics once without crashing. And what it says is, all good. Everything's normal. This is fine. And once again, on some level, I can relate. I relayed this to the dude, and he's like, well, that's not good. Now, I live in a city currently under lockdown, because my country is not doing so good. So getting face-to-face tech support is a little bit difficult. But he gets me an appointment for noon the next day. So I take my laptop into the shop, and I'm served by a lady who was actually a fellow gay. She had a little lesbian pin on her lapel. And yes, this is going to come up later, I'm not just pointing it out. But she tells me if it's a software issue, you'll likely be able to collect it tomorrow or the next day. If it's a hardware issue, it might be a week. This was concerning to me, because I was on a time crunch. In 8 days, I had to leave the city for a vaccine appointment. So, stressed. So this is a slight aside on the laptop issue, but it's hilarious, so I'm gonna tell you. So, she takes my details, my contact details, and my name. And I asked her, does it have to be the name on my Apple ID, or can it be a preferred name? And she says, preferred name's fine. So I say, Ren. She says, Ren? I reply, like the animal, W-R-E-N. A day goes by, and I get a call from them. A guy answers the phone, and he goes, hello, is this... And I can't really make out the name he says, so I say, Ren? He goes, yeah. And he reads out my case number, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he basically just told me to disconnect my Find My Mac so they could fix it. 2 more days go by, and I don't hear back, so I call them. A different man answers the phone. I tell him I've got a laptop with them, and he asks me for my name. So I say Ren, and he asks me to spell it, so I go W-R-E-N. And he kind of just pauses for a moment, and says that they don't have that name on record. So he asks me for my number. I give it to him, and he's like, worm? And I'm like, did I hear that right? I say, can you spell that for me? And he goes, W-O-R-M. Worm. Worm? Now, firstly, if any of y'all are called Worm, that is a sick name. I really like it. Secondly, my mind just immediately goes to, oh my god, the woman who took my name down, as a fellow Alphabet Soup Gang member, probably heard preferred name, picked up that I was NB, heard worm instead of Ren, and just didn't question it. Just like, yes, makes perfect sense, I'll jot that down. And with names I've heard like Sock and Bread, which I love, like if you've picked a name like that, I think that's dope, but dude, internally I was just losing it because it caught me off guard. Like the animal, I said, yeah, wrong animal. Anyway, I corrected him and continued with the call. We still have a f***ed up laptop here, gang. And the guy was like, yeah, we're still trying to see if we can fix the corrupted software, but we'll likely have to order a new motherboard because it's looking like a hardware issue. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Do you have an estimated time frame for that? And he's like, end of week. I ask, is there any chance it could be fixed by Wednesday morning? Possibly, potentially. And he just goes, nah, mate, Thursday at the earliest. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Click. Now, fast forward to Wednesday, this past Wednesday. I am on the train out of town, and I get a text. Your laptop is ready for collection. Are you kidding me? Anyway, they know that I can't pick it up for a while, so they're holding onto it, and it's all good. But, man, I'm currently using my cousin's laptop to edit, which he's really kindly lent me, and he's probably gonna watch this, so thanks, dude. And in case you're wondering, I've had a full backup of my files the whole time, so that's never been a worry. And I'm on warranty, manufacturer's warranty, so that's also good. It's no problem, it's just a pain in my butt. I told my cousin actually about the worm thing over the phone, and he played it to my family, and now they've just run with it. They've taken to calling me Ren the Worm last name, with the same inflection as Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I feel like I should hate it, but I really truly don't. But yes, as I'm currently on a loaner laptop, and I did actually lose some assets I had to make my videos with, because I hadn't backed those up yet. I'm sorry if this and the next few videos are a bit janky. I'll do my best, but I won't be able to get my computer back for another week and a bit, so please bear with me. This drawing, as you can imagine, is from a couple of weeks ago, and I'm happy that I was able to hold on to all the footage because I think that it turned out pretty sick. It's not my usual style, but then again, I tend to adapt my style to the kind of drawing I'm doing, so that isn't really saying much. I described Seven's death to a friend once as him getting Phineas Gaged, which I think is a fairly apt description. For anyone who doesn't know, here's a brief history lesson. Phineas Gage was a rail worker in the 1800s who received a spontaneous lobotomy after an iron rod got shot through his skull after a work accident. It's a pretty cool story because he lived, but he lost his frontal lobe, and as a result, he had a drastic change in personality. I can't remember where I learned this. Part of me wants to say it was mentioned in a game theory video I saw years and years ago. But anyway, a similar thing happens to Seven, and I'm 100% sure that I stole this concept. Except he experiences a more probable outcome and dies instantly. So he works as a field medic at the RAG base, which stands for Royal Army of Gemini. Gemini being the name of the country. They're all named after zodiacs and are on a continent called the Atlian Peninsula. There's a two-world power dynamic going on between Gemini in the south and Scorpio in the north. And Scorpio has taken to dropping bombs directly onto the army base. So during an air raid, which has happened several times, Seven is conducting the evacuation of the medic tents when a bomb drops, destroying the tent, sending shrapnel everywhere and a metal support beam through his head. It kind of goes through his jaw and comes out his eye socket, as you can see in this picture. I'm sort of a fan of gory deaths. I mean, most of mine are pretty mild, and this one is probably the second most gnarly. The first one is ahead by a long shot, and is actually his sister. I should probably draw that one time, because I think it would be pretty cool. Maybe I will. Except, I don't really want to start a political conversation on this channel, and I worry that it will. Because she's a member of the police force and is murdered essentially as a form of violent protest. And I wrote that years ago as a very dystopian plot point, but I feel like it's more pertinent now than it was then. I don't know. I probably still will draw it, because I think it's pretty cool. It's in no way a commentary on the real world, and it never was. And this isn't even about that. This is about another death entirely. This is her brother, Seven. This is a really flat, contrast-heavy piece, and I was 100% inspired by the colour scheme of Cold War-era propaganda posters, and general style elements from that kind of media. The Cold War actually inspired me for a lot of the elements I wrote into the story. In high school, I was a massive Cold War nerd. I loved learning about it, and even still it interests me. Not that you'd know if you ever tried to quiz me on it. I love learning history, I do not love memorizing. Basically for anything. My brain is a wall, and dates and figures are undercooked spaghetti. They just bounce right back off. I started studying it first in year 10. By that point, I knew that war was going to feature heavily in the plot of what I was writing, but I didn't know how to write it realistically, because I'd never learned about war from a socio-political point of view. Then, when I did, I was like, oh shit, now I get it. It's more than just pew 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 because two countries are mad at each other. I'm going off on a tangent here, I apologize. Back to the art. I'm pretty happy with the pose. I think I used 4 colours total for this piece. I used the deep navy, the cream, and then 2 tones of red, one of which you could argue is pink. The blood that's on his uniform and on his face is one of those finishing touches that I wasn't sure if I would keep. I did end up leaving it though, because with the whole field medic working under an ongoing bombing, I felt like he would have been around a lot of blood, mainly other people's. And I know that it probably wouldn't be in these like Halloween costume-esque red splotches, kind of giving off sexy dead nurse vibes. And he is a sexy dead nurse, but that's not the point. His coat would probably be filthy, but that level of detail didn't really go with the graphic style I was aiming for. Speaking of Halloween though, I actually just realized that this video will be coinciding with the start of Spooky Month. That wasn't the plan, but hey, I guess it worked out. There's also this area of the lighter red that I used for the bar going out the back of his head, like the bit that's covered in blood because it's already gone through. I wasn't sure at first if the contrast was high enough for you to be able to see at a glance that it was a continuation of the bar, and it didn't just blend into the background, but I showed it to my friend, and he was like, oh, that bar's in his head, and then he looked at it for a moment, and he was like, that went right through, and I was like, yeah. And I liked that reaction, so I kept it that way. I really like this piece overall. As I said, with the Cold War inspo, I think that it really does capture that war vibe. War vibe? War aesthetic. Moving on. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you didn't mind me talking about the issues that I've been having with my laptop. Maybe it was interesting, maybe it was boring, I don't really know. All I know is that I'll have to make do for the next few videos. I'll do my best to make them up to par, and it would be dope if you'd join me for them. So, if you liked this video, liked my art, liked hearing me talk, please go ahead and drop a like. If you didn't, little odd that you're still here, but by all means drop a dislike. Leave a comment down below if you're so inclined, and subscribe for future videos. I'm always making something, so there'll always be something to see. Alrighty, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later!